So the opportunities for data analytics in the hospitality industry, it seems like this industry has really taken off with data opportunities, AI opportunities. Really post-COVID, it seems like it's really just lightning speed ahead. And the data analytics, from my standpoint, really being on the accounting CPA side, really just understanding the numbers so quickly, so easily, and it creates a pathway for the owners to be able to experience and understand those numbers as well. And I think that's just tremendous because it helps them understand their cost, primarily thinking of restaurants, food cost, labor cost, whatever it may be. And it helps them pull that data in a way that they can probably understand it in a matter of 10 minutes
Right.
versus hours as it was before.
Right. That's a really good point, Brandon. IBM used to have this slogan where they said, know what your data knows. And I think that's the biggest issue with all businesses, but especially hospitality. Every company is now a data company, and you've got all this information, and what are you using it for, right? And I think that's where owners, they want to look for trends, they want to look for analysis, they want to see what's happening with their customers and what days of the weeks do I need more food, less food.
Yep.
That's the kind of knowledge that they need to get from their data, but they need to be using it. Right. I think that's the biggest issue.
That is a great point. And being able to use it and understand it, I think those are fantastic points. And having that data and not using it, I mean, what a detriment, especially the software we have today.
Right. And what a waste of cost, right? Because you're storing all that information. It's sitting there. You're probably wondering why certain sales are not happening or why certain days are better than others. Just go back to the data. I mean, really, I always, whenever I do presentations on data analytics, I have always said the truth lies in the data. You just got to know how to look, where to look. Every company now can benefit from a data analyst.
Yep. And I think that kind of spurs a thought with me is having all that data, keeping it safe. That's a huge point, and you guys probably see it on your end, certainly more so than not.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, when we're having those discussions and we talk about cost and we talk about security, it's the cost of the security. Right. And companies that have a lot of data, that gather a lot of data, if you can't keep it safe, you're not going to have customers, right? Because why would I want to go work with X, Y, or Z? Why would I want to go shop with ABC when they can't keep my information safe? I'm going to go somewhere else where they do. And I think that's the biggest security concern. And every state now has a data privacy law. So if you have a breach, you've got to follow their laws. And what I always tell people is, if you don't know which state applies to you, because it's the consumer that related to. So if you're an organization, if you're a hospitality company that has folks from all over the states, you've got to follow whatever states they are from. And so I always tell people, follow California, follow New York. You're getting the most stringent security piece, but that's a huge cost and concern as it relates to gathering data. Is I've now got to keep it safe, because that's going to tear me down as a company more than anything else.
Oh, yeah. And this industry is probably unique in the fact that you've got such a volume of customers. You've got individuals like you and I. Thinking of restaurants, you've got hundreds of customers per day, maybe thousands of customers per day, and then hotels and anything in hospitality tends to be on the individual level. So just the volume of data coming across is probably so great, I could imagine.
And it's the speed, right? I think the stats change as rapid as the data changes, but it used to be that data doubles itself every 6 to 12 hours.
Wow.
So when you think about that, if I'm creating analysis and trying to come up with answers, am I doing it on new data? Am I doing it on too old of data? You've got to keep up with that, right? So it's a lot of the times data analysts, what's good for them and why they're good for organizations is I can keep up with the speed of data and I can give you answers. You want answers on data that came in the last 6 hours. You don't want it on the last 6 days. So it may be obsolete.
That's exactly.
Right? So you've really got to stay on top of it. Reports are great. Analysis is good, but you've got to really stay on top of it. If not, it's gonna be an issue for you.
Yeah. So thinking of how some businesses that I've seen that have really used data analytics in a positive way, that have performed at a high level with it, Thinking of just a local restaurant that we have on the coast, 3-location restaurant. They've really leaned into data analytics, in this case, to understand their food cost, to understand what is selling, to understand their labor pool, when they need labor, when they don't need that labor, and it helps them understand some of the ebbs and flows within this particular business. Because a restaurant, naturally, you're going to have your breakfast, lunch, dinner. They're going to be pretty gangbusters, and you're going to have all hands on deck most times, depending on what's going on. So being able to have that data to see when your sales are occurring and being able to match up the labor with that has been fantastic for this company. And on the food cost side, just being able to understand the ingredients that are going into their product, being consistent with those ingredients, and not really wasting along the way, and being able to control that, whether it be through inventory management, recipes. It's been just a phenomenal way for them to focus on their bottom line, increase the bottom line, and to really just drive this business forward and continue growing with really everything they had before. It's data, and it's understanding the data.
Right. And I think the companies that don't do it well, they focus solely on the data and they don't look outside of that.
Yeah.
Right. The data tells me X, I'm just going to go do Y. Okay. There may be, understand what it's telling you and why it's telling you. Don't just knee-jerk reaction. Right.
Yep.
Far too often we see hospitality organizations that will look at it, respond, and then go, oh, wait a minute, I need to go back to, and I need to actually hire somebody again because they were really doing X, Y, and Z. So I think the companies that don't do it well, knee-jerk reaction. I think the ones that really don't do it well aren't even looking at it. And far too often they will buy a software that's going to tell them, give them reports, tell them information. You go in and you talk to them and they say, well, we've got these reports, but nobody ever looks at them. Okay, then you're wasting your time, Yep. You're wasting your money and not listening to what your data is having to say, right? It's helpful. And in your case, it's controlling their cost. It's making sure that they have the cost in the right buckets. I think the companies that don't do it well, it's really from the perspective of they're not using it the right way, or they don't have somebody that, we always used to say data analysts think of things differently. The biggest positive they have is they're curious. Okay, I'm going to find this trend. I'm going to follow this trend. I want to understand the why behind the trend, right? Not just that there is a trend, but I need to understand the ultimate why. The other companies that don't do it well, the data gives them answers and they don't change, right? So they've really just wasting their time and money. So I think those are really two good examples of doing it well and not doing it well.
And I've seen, just as you mentioned, many companies that'll buy a product, whatever it may be, and not utilize it. And that's just amazing to have that tool right there, right in front of them, and they're not using it. And that unfortunately happens more so than not. So I think really just teaming up with, whether it be your internal management team or a professional outside of the industry, to help you understand that information, to encourage those business leaders to use that information, and just as you mentioned, actually do something with it and make some changes where changes are needing to be made.
I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and I did a tour of the facility, of the hotel, and they were talking about their food costs, and they were talking about sometimes when they look at things, something maybe 75 cents a piece or $1, and they've got to decide which one is better. Well, most people would go, well, the 75-cent one has got to be better. It's got to be cheaper. But what are the other residual costs that come outside of that, right? So in their aspect, they were looking at it saying, if I spend the 75 cents, I've got to spend X amount on the haul away of the material. Where if I spend the $1, maybe I can take that $1 item. I don't have that haul away. Which one is really the most cost effective? And so when you're looking at data, you need to look at data from all related aspects, right? It's not just this one piece of data. There's 4 or 5 other things that are going to play into it, right? It's a whole other conversation around managing costs and how you handle that. But from this perspective, it was, okay, you can't just look at the lower cost and pick that. You've got to see everything else that's related to it.
That's a great point. It really feels like it's another language sometimes. And being able to have that individual and that team within an organization that can speak that language and translate it for those that may not speak it, to create that solution and to drive things forward. So that's a very important point right there.
I would agree with that. the thing you have to do is you have to figure out who can help me. I need somebody. Maybe there is a very data-minded person within your organization that if you just ask around and say, who in here understands data more than just numbers on a spreadsheet and can actually analyze, look at answers, know some of the techniques that we need to follow, find that person. It may be internal. You may need to go external with that. But those data analysts, again, they're curious. They love to follow rabbit holes, right? And they love to look for trends. And the biggest thing is just the why. Why is this trend the way it is? What has caused this? And if you can get to the ultimate why on something, maybe you can solve that problem. So if you're sitting there listening to us and saying, I really need to do this better, go find somebody to help you translate that data. Because it really is, like you said, it's another language. And it's not something that comes easily to some people. There are data analytics professionals. People go to school to be data analysts. And I would say over the last 10, 15 years, you've seen a huge uptick in that degree from universities. And I think it's important. And from an accountant's perspective, right, we have to change. We have to grow. We have to know more than just debits and credits. We've got to start looking at data in this format. And so we've got to find folks that can do it. So if you need somebody, go look for a data analyst. Give them an example, right? Hey, what would you do with this information? We were working with a retail organization, and they were looking at trying to, their cost of transportation was increasing. And it's because they were servicing a certain area. And so we started looking and we said, okay, where are you servicing the most that's costing you the most? And at the end of the day, they went and they looked at the information. They didn't have anybody internal. They were having somebody, we were helping them review this. And what it told them at the end was they needed another warehouse in X location so that their cost of transportation was covered mostly in bulk transportation. Mm-hmm. And then from there, they could service all those people, right? And so it's never going to be the same. You've always got to continue looking at it. But that's another good example of we don't know, our costs are going up. We don't know how to impact that. Oh, maybe we need to spend a little bit more money over here to make a little bit more money in the future because our costs are now being controlled to some degree.
Yep. And that puts a thought into my mind just thinking of this. A business owner that wants to right the ship, if you will, and use this data and understand this data, it's important for them to understand that it's customizable. What's
absolutely.
Important to me may be different to you and other people in the same community. So it's very important for each owner to really understand what they're looking for, what they're trying to understand, and use that information to drive themselves forward, drive the business forward, and understand that what's important today, as quickly as you mentioned, as things are changing, could be different tomorrow or next week. So really just understand that data can change, to understand that it's likely to change, and to understand that what's going on today may be different next week. And just as you mentioned, being curious, I think that's a great point of using that the right way.
Yeah, and the value of data analytics, and I always used to say this, is back to the old needle in a haystack. I have a haystack, and I've got to find my needle. I've got to find my answer. Yep. Data analytics takes that haystack and it solves it to 4 pieces of straw and 1 needle. Now I know what my needle is. Now I've taken away the noise, and now I'm really diving into what is my data telling me. And I think that's a really good analysis for a business owner looking to say, is the value, is the cost, the fee of data analytics really worth it? And it really removes the noise and it helps you get those answers quickly.
Absolutely.